Xue gaze moved back to Qi Rong. After staring at him for a moment, Xue said, "Qi Rong, it looks like you've been living colorfully these past few years." Right after he finished his words, Hua Cheng removed his fake skin. Qi Rong's eyes widened as each of the three intruders revealed themselves. Lang Chencho was bewildered. Cousin? Even if earlier, when he heard Qi Rong say, "Us Shanle," and guessed the identity of the green ghost's past life as a citizen of the kingdom of Shanle, he hadn't imagined that he and Xilian were actually related on a personal level. Qi Rong stared at Xilian's face and looked him up and down. It was a gaze hungry with curiosity and fascination. When his eyes stopped at the sword Fang Xin on Xilian's back, he suddenly burst out laughing. "So that's it. That's it. Fang Xin was you. You were Fang Xin." Although he couldn't understand why Qi Rong was laughing, Lang Chencho's gut told him that it wasn't anything appropriate, and demanded angrily, "What's so funny?" "I'm laughing at my good old cousin. What's it to you?" Qi Rong bit back in a fit. "Just now, I said my lord's stupidity spanned hundreds of years. I'm sorry. I apologize. The best way to learn is to learn from the best. Look at your master. No wonder you're so fucking stupid." He turned to Xilian. "You went to Yong'an and became their gosha, and ended up stabbed to death by your own disciple. Is that not exciting? Is it not hilarious? You deserved it, making a fool of yourself." The moment he uttered the word fool, Hua Cheng smashed his head down again, violently. Qi Rong had always been tough-skinned, and for some reason, seeing Xilian made him 10 times more excited than usual. Even with his face bashed into the ground, he yelled unceasingly, "A fool! A fool! A fool!" Each time he said it, Hua Cheng would smash his head down again. It was a bloody scene, and Xilian stopped the hand that was about to strike yet again. "San Lang, let it go." "Why should I?" Hua Cheng said sharply. "It's nothing. Don't let any of it get to you," Xilian said. "He is mental and extremely troublesome. I can take care of him. You just sit back and ignore him." He gently rubbed Hua Cheng's shoulder, and it was a long time before Hua Cheng finally replied in a low voice, "Fine." Qi Rong plucked his own head from the ground and rolled to the side with difficulty. He spat. "Why play pretend with your false kindness? If you really didn't want him to hit me, then you should have stopped him from the beginning. Faking indifference and only telling him to let it go now, no one's going to praise you for your generosity." "I stopped him because I don't want him to dirty his hands. Did you misunderstand something?" Xilian said. A trace of anger flashed through Qi Rong's bloodied face, but then he started giggling. "Cousin Crown Prince, you're getting along pretty well with Hua Cheng. And here I was, just wondering why none of the underlings that this little brother of yours sent to greet you on Zhongyuan ever returned. So it was because they ran into Hua Cheng." Xilian had no idea that Qi Rong had actually sent any underlings to go find him. The night of the Zhongyuan festival, it was a coincidence to have bumped into Hua Cheng, and taking him back to Puji Shrine wasn't in the plan. It seemed that all of Qi Rong's underlings had been taken care of by Hua Cheng. Xilian couldn't help but steal a glance at the person next to him. Qi Rong continued, calling him San Lang, tisk tisk tisk. "So familiar. Cousin, you're a big shot heavenly official. How can you hang out with ghosts and demons? Aren't you worried about your reputation? You're so perfect, after all, so pure and flawless. Your halo shines upon all on the earth." He laughed. Many in the heavenly court had more or less thought that the way Mu Cheng spoke was sarcastic. But if they were to listen and compare, they would learn what sarcasm is. Truly, they had wronged Mu Cheng. Qi Rong didn't just speak, he'd act too. He folded his hands over his heart and exclaimed, "Cousin Crown Prince, this little brother had constantly thought of you over the years. Look, I even meticulously carved this statue to keep you by my side, so I can gaze upon your heroic form every waking moment of every day. What do you think? It's pretty well done, right? Do you like it? Don't worry. If you don't like it, then it's even better. I'll carve more. He laughed again. The moment he mentioned the statue, Hua Chang's face immediately darkened. If it wasn't for Xilian holding him back, he would have stepped on Qirong's face. However, Xilian knew perfectly well the kind of person Qirong was. He was a little mad in the head, and the more extreme the reaction, the more excited he'd get, and the more outrageous he'd become. Reverse psychology was the most effective, so Xilian only smiled faintly. It's only all right. Sorry, but the craftsmanship is kind of low class. As expected, Qirong's face immediately fell. He said coldly, Enough. If it wasn't for my past affections and me carving you a couple of statues, who would even worship you? You probably sniveled and whined at Junwu's feet and hugged till your knees busted in order to ascend this time. Go around the heavens and see for yourself which official isn't more dignified than you. Even a 200-year-old ascendee can walk all over you. You're pretty much 800 years old, but only got so far. What a failure. Xilian smiled. I am quite the failure, not like my cousin, already a savage after 800 years. Xilian knew way too well how to put Qirong down. Next to him, Hua Chang snorted, and Qirong's face darkened. He looked between all those present, and suddenly said, This stance. Did you beg Hua Chang to fight with me today to settle our differences? Xilian was taken aback, and thought about the current picture they painted, and actually couldn't argue back. Qirong continued, Look at you all. The moment I say anything bad about you, wow, look at how mad he gets. Was he blinded by that holy light from your halo? My f***ing God, I forgot. Wasn't he already blind in one eye? Before he could finish, his eyes went dark again, and his cheek exploded in agony, spewing blood from his mouth. He got punched again. However, this punch wasn't from Hua Chang, but from Xilian. Xilian's fist was faster than the eye could see, and he said coldly, Just because I've never hit you before in the past doesn't mean that I would never hit you. That punch was a solid one, and it was a long while before Qirong could make any sounds. He laid on the ground like a mangy dog, clubbing the ground with his fists as he cackled. Cousin Crown Prince, you hit me. You actually hit me. Heavens, our noble, kind, compassionate, charitable Crown Prince, who's scared of stepping on even a small ant, actually got pissed and swung a fist. He's hitting people. Incredible. Amazing. He was unbelievably excited, going insane with elation. Lang Chen-Cho had never seen anyone whose words and actions were so crazy, and was shocked into stupefaction after witnessing this singular act. He mumbled, Is he crazy? Xilian was used to seeing Qirong's madness, and didn't think much of it. You've heard it, he's insane. His heart and mind are unbalanced, so nothing he said is believable. Qirong's laughter came to a sudden stop. He schooled his expression and sneered. Don't be so quick to tell people that I'm a psycho. Let me ask you, how did Prince An Le die? This was the question Hua Chang had posed to him, and now he asked it to Xilian instead. Lang Chen-Cho's attention was suddenly focused on it again. Xilian's heart culled, and he couldn't immediately respond. Qirong, on the other hand, slowly pulled himself up and sat while leaning on the kneeling statue. After An Le died, I cut open his corpse to inspect it, and all of his organs were pulverized by the vibrations of an exceedingly powerful sword, which was why he didn't have any external injuries, but couldn't stop hacking up blood. This was something no regular swordsman could do. At first I thought that Yong'an thugs had brought in some strange hitman so as to frame An Le's death as an illness. But now that I think about it, there's another person who can do this, and it's none other than my good old cousin, defender of justice. After all, our flower-crowned martial god, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, is a holy, pure, one and only, snow-white lotus of the heavenly mountains. Hua Chang stomped on him, and Qirong yelped miserably. Lang Chencho felt like his head was going to explode. He held his head, his eyes laced with red. Shut up! Just tell me what you know. Who's the real murderer? What happened at the gilded banquet? And what happened to Prince Anle? What the hell happened? Lang Chencho, why are you still confused? Qirong said. Even I pretty much figured out what happened. Looks like you really don't understand the kind of person your master is. Come let me dissect my good old cousin for you. This former crown prince of Shanle went and became Yong'an's Guoshe and taught you swordsmanship for 5 years. He'd only spoken a few words, and Shilian reached for his sword. Before he could charge forward, Lang Chencho's longsword blocked him. Let him finish. You know he's insane, and yet you still listen to his mad conjecture, Shilian said. Fang Xin was swung, and even though it was a slender blade, its shockwave almost made Lang Chencho loosen his grip on the longsword. But just then, a silver, curved blade knocked Fang Xin, hooked it up, and pulled it aside. Shilian was startled and cried, San Lang. Qirong saw how much Shilian didn't want him to speak, and how desperately he didn't want Lang Chencho to hear the story. So Qirong had to do the opposite, and grabbed this chance. Prince Anle was our good Shanle boy, very obedient. He heeded my instructions to be false friends with you, but your master bumped into us cleaning out the Yong'an rat nest at the gilded banquet, so Anle escaped. You got to the gilded banquet, saw what happened, and the Guoshe Fang Xin became the most wanted man in the kingdom. This was a previous story. Not one word is a lie. Shilian tried to charge forward to shut his mouth a few times, but each time Hua Chang stopped him. Shilian cried again, San Lang. However, Hua Chang didn't say a single word, and only continued to block Shilian. The more Shilian wanted to charge over, the faster Qirong's lips moved. The saintly cousin of mine, when he saw with his own eyes the people of Shanle committing murder, he must have thought, how can this be? That's not right. So he went to find Prince Anle to educate him a little. But when he sought him out, my God, what did he discover? Anle's major plot. It wasn't only just assassinating some thugs. There's no way cousin could educate him. So he hardened his heart and killed the last blood of our royal house with his own hands. Afterward, you caught your master and nailed him dead in that coffin. And so ends my cousin's magnificent life as Guoshe. Cousin, am I wrong? He spat out a mouthful of blood next to the feet of the statue. I know you too well. You love doing shit like this. Ancestors above, look at what a good descendant you gave birth to. Not only has the Shanle Shir clan lost everything, even the bloodline is cut. Shilian, you ominous star, you god of misfortune, your existence is Shanle's greatest tragedy. Why won't you die? Why do you even have the face to keep living? But I saw with my own eyes that he killed my father with his sword, Lang Chencho said. How do you explain that? If it wasn't water getting into your fucking senior eyes and ruining your sight, then I can only think of one reason, Qirong replied, which is that Anle for sure stabbed your old man, but he didn't die. Did he drive the blow home? Qirong howled. What are you saying? My good cousin is such a kind soul. How could he drive any attacks home? When he arrived, he wouldn't have attacked right away. He'd have to do a little show of trying to save the poor guy first. But your old man probably killed himself. What do you mean he killed himself? Lang Chencho demanded. What's the first thing someone saved from the brink of murder will do? Qirong asked. After seeing so many massacred at the gilded banquet, what's your first reaction? Lang Chen-cho still hadn't completely deduced it. "Find the murderer," he said. "Wrong," Chi-rong cried. "After my good cousin saved your old man, and he revived his breath, he would have certainly said, 'Quick, Guoshe, it was Prince Anle who did it. Go and kill Prince Anle.' No, not just that. He must have said something worse, like, 'Guoshe, bring forth Chen-cho. Call upon everyone. I want the entire population of Shanle wiped out. I want to bury them all with the dead.'" His imitative tone of despair and fury was disturbing to listen to, and Lang Chen-cho was growing paler by the minute. Chi-rong continued, "Even if he wasn't killed on the spot, your old hag had an entire nest of thug relatives that were all killed before him. He'd have to open fire on the people of Shanle sooner or later. Your good master realized this, considered his options, and decided no, the old man couldn't be saved. So the old man's heart goes cold. That's the kind of person my good cousin is, a saint who can't have sand in his eyes, always doing shit that harms others and hurts himself. He wanted to please both sides, but succeeded with neither."